All right. Good morning, everybody. Good. Let's get underway. We are in Ecclesiastes chapter 4. Thank you for the great discussion last week as we ended chapter 3. Just a short chunk inspired a lot of great discussion, everything from the eternal state of animals to everything under the sun, practically. So let's go ahead and get into chapter 4. Again, I saw all the oppressions that are practiced under the sun. Look, the tears of the oppressed with no one to comfort them. On the side of their oppressors there was power, with no one to comfort them. And I commended the dead who have already died more than the living who are still alive. But better than both is the one who has not yet been and has not seen the evil deeds that are done under the sun. Then I saw that all toil and all skill and work come from one person's envy of another. This also is vanity and a chasing after wind. Fools fold their hands and consume their own flesh. Better is a handful with quiet than two handfuls with toil and a chasing after wind. Again, I saw vanity under the sun, the case of solitary individuals without sons or brothers. Yet there is no end to all their toil, and their eyes are never satisfied with riches. For whom am I toiling, they ask, and depriving myself of pleasure? This also is vanity and an unhappy business. Let's take up these first 3 verses. Kohelet is trying to understand what value there is in labor. We talked last week that it feels a little bit like Marx's writings about how human labor is so easily commodified. Here he sees that beyond even labor, there is oppression. And those who are oppressed are those who are in power. I think we can relate to that. On the side of their oppressors, there was power. Comments, thoughts on this, on these first 3 verses? You don't agree?
It says on verse 3, better, well, the one hand,
better than either the dead or the living is one who is never born to see the evil of the world.
if you don't see the evil, then you don't see the pleasant later. The yin and the yang, you have to have the bad in order to appreciate the good.
All right, Wendy says being able to see evil allows you to appreciate the opposite of evil, beauty, justice, righteousness. Diane?
That's not much of an answer for oppressed.
Right.
That's not much of an answer for those who are oppressed.
And that says with no one, Christ killed us.
All right. So Diane says, okay, not much comfort for those who are oppressed, but the teachings of Christ instruct us that we are the ones who are supposed to bring comfort to those who are oppressed. Melissa? Hmm.
Like it's taking it a little bit too far. We aren't just on earth. I mean, not taking anything away, but feels is he setting something up for the next passage? So this feels a little bit.
Okay, Melissa says, a little dramatic to say, I wish I had never been born. Yeah. Lisa?
These days, turning on just TV with even the ad with the Homeland Security, I'm like, understand. So like the despair, like,
Yeah.
I mean, not that I agree with it, like obviously, but I appreciate this kind of like, I'm so tired of the oppression. I mean, it's just like if your kid and I don't know, obviously, if this and this now, but like, I just, 7 months, or whatever, 8 months, it just feels like you're so under the weight of all evil. And with like, no matter what you do, we just keep doing, I just like, nah. I did not agree, but I understand it. Like, you just get tired. So.
Okay, yeah, like feeling with Melissa, we're not going to get this dramatic where we feel like it's better that we weren't born, but you can understand the emotion of it. That sometimes seeing evil continue to persist, you feel like, when does it ever end? How can we deal with it? Yeah, Shirley?
To me, it's like there's this disconnect. There are all these people right now in Gaza and Ukraine who are oppressed, who are suffering, and then there are many of us somewhere else who do care, who do commiserate, who wish to comfort, but there's this big wall between. There's no way that we can actually do anything directly, and we would. I mean, we voted the right way, we did this and that, but it's still, we might send aid and then it disappears. It's frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Shirley says, okay, we see the evil, we see the oppression, we see what's going on in Gaza, we see what's going on in Ukraine. Then there's this subset of people who want to do something about it. We voted for candidates that would have done something about it, or could have, maybe. Most candidates were not going to do anything about it. Or we're sending aid, and we don't know where that aid is going, dollars. And so it feels like there's this wall. How do we provide comfort to the oppressors? So a little exasperation or despair, we're relating to that feeling even more. Okay? Yeah, Rick?
When I look at the press, my states that capture and stations that are not giving any comfort.
Yeah. Rick says the second he heard Tears of the Oppressed, he immediately thought of those being kidnapped, deported, imprisoned by ICE. ICE is not providing comfort. Toby?
And yet, there could very well be, it's not even a parallel world, it's this world. Another group sitting around talking about this, relishing what is happening, being very happy with. It's like the idea of prayer. Everybody's sending up prayers, but so many of the prayers are contradictory of each other and stuff. All is vanity. It's just.
All right. Okay. Toby, feeling the pointlessness of somewhere there's another group sitting around relishing everything that's happening. Prayers are going up from everybody, and those prayers contradict their aims. That seems pointless. Okay, absolutely. This is good.
Victory for our side. No, victory for our side. Oh, no, victory for this side.
Different sides trying to claim God on their side, or that they want victory for them. God left a long time ago. Okay, all right. Thanks, Toby.
All right, first, I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. So Joe, we're kind of feeling these feelings of exasperation and despair. Joe's saying just finished a book on Gaza. One day everyone will have been against this. I read that as well. And saying, okay, you think of children starving. God, maybe it would have been better had they not experienced the evil they're experiencing. So go ahead, Melissa.
I just, it's interesting because none of us can judge for each other whether or not it would have been better to live or not. I mean, even the urge to live and the urge to create and the urge to experience are, I think, our greatest gift, the gift that we give when we're taking breath.
Mm.
And no matter what goes on, I mean, I have seen evil. I used to be a multi-constituent, like evil incarnate.
Mm.
But I've also seen like murderers who came out the other side and redeemed themselves for a different life and to contribute to life. And I just this idea of it, and people suffer, yeah, people suffer for it, but I just feel like the idea that it would have been better for someone to never experience anything goes against the whole idea of life and faith, no matter how horrible it is. There are still those redeeming.
Yeah. Melissa saying the breath of life also gives us this urge, the urge to survive, to thrive, to experience. And as a criminal defense attorney in your past, seeing both one side of someone just being evil incarnate, and on the other side, murderers who've been able to reform and seek to contribute to society, which represents that the urge to survive or thrive or contribute. All right, this is good. So the teacher, I think this is capturing a lot of emotions in this room, a lot of emotions we're experiencing thousands of years later. What do you do in the face of evil when it seems like nothing can stop it, and that the oppressors have all the power, and that those suffering are not able to receive comfort? And the teacher here is not providing an answer to that. This is, we're problematizing it, we're thinking out loud. So verse 1 says, there's no one to comfort them. And Diane Shirley saying, well, how do we respond to that as people of faith? Are we the ones to provide the comfort? Yeah, Shirley.
Maybe one more step, nowhere in here is Kohelet saying, and am I an oppressor and not even knowing it, which we all have to face at some point.
Ooh. Yeah. That kind of, I think, ties into the undercurrent of a bit of whininess that you're feeling, Melissa, is like when you are so focused on the external, you forget, okay, am I contributing to the oppression? Am I contributing to the evil? And he's not exploring that. Yeah.
The line on the side of their oppressors that was power with no one to comfort them. And at the end of Trump and Putin's gathering on Friday, when they both came back out, and Putin was going on and on with a lively kind of expression, and Trump was just flat, nothing on his face, and just had a few words to say. And then I thought I read, just a little bit an article this morning in the paper that just how Trump was having to go in Putin's direction. That's not what he wanted to do. So no one was comforting both in person as well as the audience.
Yeah, Rick tying it into modern day events, thinking about this gathering between Putin and Trump, and where are the comforters in that situation? Yeah, Melissa?
I think it can even be, my brain goes to when the tanks were going into Tiananmen Square, and that one guy who, what he happened to his leg or something, he blocked those tanks for so long. Yeah, he eventually lost, but it was a triumph of the spirit over that oppression. I think it gave hope to people all over the world. I think there are little moments like that not, but little actions that can capture spirit over the physical world that appears to be dragging him down. He doesn't feel like he's living in spirit. He feels like he's living in, just.
Melissa saying, thinking of the famous moment captured on photograph of the man standing in front of the tanks in Tiananmen Square. And yes, he loses, but that moment that inspired so many people, that inspired resiliency, that inspired action. And it feels like Kohelet is so focused on the physical, he's forgetting the ways in which the human spirit can be resilient.
But what did that individual achieve? Chinese communist government still controls China. Tiananmen Square is a forgotten, or it's, you know, in the midst of the past. I don't know. I think we feed ourselves. We try to take inspiration from these individual examples, and we do like to say one person can cause something that'll change everything, but we do seem to be just pawns of things that are beyond our control. I don't know.
Okay, yeah. Feeling
I tend to be
more,
on the very pessimistic.
feeling more hopelessness and pessimism. It's understandable. Yeah, Diane.
I think though that people who are living in oppression, just because the government is state communist and oppressive, doesn't mean that all the people in China are happy about that. And those who take a stand and give hope and comfort to those who are oppressed. I mean, just like not everybody in the United States is happy with the way things are going. Don't wish to support it, but that is what we're living under. That's our control.
Yeah.
But people still do protests and things. That's just, you know, it's that expression for those who are oppressed, that we're with people who care.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, I think there's value in that.
Yeah.
It is, you know, it's giving comfort, even though people still have to live in these circumstances. But they're not alone. There's something about, I'm not the only one.
Yeah, thank you. So Diane's saying, okay, all right, here's the approach we should take. Let's just be real. This is the world that we're living in, and we want to change it. We try to change it. Maybe we don't change it. Maybe standing in front of the tank accomplishes nothing. But at the same time, we find meaning and purpose in providing whatever comfort we can, protesting, showing people they're not alone, speaking up. All right, we got a lot of hands. So Cynthia has been raising it, and then James, Robin, Donna, and then we'll get to Ben's comment online. Yeah, Cynthia?
Okay, well, I think we're touching on the thing that we need to do in terms of the world. Most of us are never going to operate on the scale of Trump or Putin, but everybody can do little things, and that's cumulative. And the efforts to oppress us are part of spirit, make us feel like we can't do anything. Right. But enough people doing things, you only need a pebble to start an avalanche. And there's more than one pebble in the room. And you have to be the forceful player as a minister and practice. But Joe and I go to church and we're atheists. We join the church because they're fighting this stuff. Folks feel like we found a community. But this church is together as a force multiplier. So we are many pebbles going downhill in the direction of the better.
Yeah, thanks,
And maybe
Cynthia.
it doesn't, given the scale of this 1,000 years ago, there will always be oppression family, but we can always fight back. We can always band together and have enough strength.
Yeah, thanks. So Cynthia saying, all right, we don't have the power of a world leader to change things as quickly or fastly as we might want to, but the analogy of a single pebble causing a rock slide or an avalanche recognizing that there's more than one pebble in this room, that little efforts or actions do make a difference. We've seen them make a difference. They can make a difference. When you think of world events like apartheid, and nothing is perfect, but people of faith acting does change. Yeah, thank you. James?
So I wanted to actually return to something that Shirley had said, because she touched on something that I was thinking about in terms of perspective, narrative perspective, and talked about, like, we don't, this person, are they aware that they're an oppressor? Perhaps too. I was thinking about perspective because we're to believe that this is King Solomon talking as the teacher, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this language to me comes across as someone that is talking from a certain perspective and has lived a certain life, and perhaps I think that many people are identifying, maybe doesn't see the other side of the resistance, the resilience. I think what stood out to me was like verse 4, where it says, "Then I saw that all toil and all skill and work come from one person's envy of another." To me, that's very much someone who comes from a certain perspective of power, privilege, and people stepping over each other. It's like that whole story of like the king who lets the peasant sit in the seat with the sword dangling over him and being like, "This is my position of power. This is always tenuous." Well, yeah, if you're in a place like that, you only see all skill and work and toil coming from one person's envy of another. You don't see anyone comforting. You only see this usurpation of power constantly. So I think it's important to keep it in perspective. Who is saying this?
Wow. Wow. Okay. Brilliant. James saying we got to keep in mind the perspective of the author. We're made to believe that this is King Solomon. And so perhaps the author too is coming from a place of privilege. And when you're coming from that place of privilege, you see the power of the oppressor, you see no one comforting, you see that all the toils from envy of another, but there's also perspective from the underside, from the resistance, where people are doing this work that someone from power and privilege might miss out on. Robin?
Oh, something like that. I was thinking, like, this was obviously written by somebody who had privilege. And for him to say, it is better that some people were not even born here. Ask those people if they feel that way. It's like they want us to believe that. And when you're in a position of power, like some of the people in power now, there are certain inconvenient people who seem to be living a horrible life, and we really just wish they would disappear.
Wow.
We want them to just go away.
Wow.
And so part of all of this seems to me like, oh, this is hopeless. These people, you need to believe you have no power. I don't know if he realizes or not that he's just perpetuating his own position and the helplessness of other people.
Oof.
Or like trying to get them to believe that,
Yeah.
it seems to me.
Yeah. Oh.
And it's just outrageous.
That's a great critique. Robin saying, look, this reeks of privilege to say, when you think of the modern day, oh, there's this class of people that are so inconvenient that we wish they weren't here, that we didn't have to deal with them, that they could just be gone somewhere else, that we wish they had never been born. And so to speak that way is a tool of power to convince people that they don't have power, that they don't have worth, and for other people to get on board with that. And it's ridiculous. Absolutely. Wow, that's good. Donna.
Well, we were saying about judgment, the future belongs to God. The idea that if you live a certain way and you fear of God, I think that would be the term that these in English they would use. And awe of God, then you really aren't living toward God. You are almost resisting. But to bring in something that's very current, Jose Andres, you know from World Central Kitchen, gives a monthly online statement of what is being done, for example, in Gaza and Ukraine right now, and what is helping. He always says what is helping. What they can do is they've served 140 million meals in the last week in 2 countries. And then he says, but this isn't going to fix everything. He'll say this, his little letters he sends out to people. But you don't fix people anyway. You just give them a better perspective, because they think that now there is hope in the world because of what the effort is that you're doing.
Okay.
In the game.
Jose Andres, Donna saying, puts out a letter outlining how much has been done in Gaza, what can be done, and recognizes this is not solving the problem, but this is what we're doing, this is what we can do. I'm going to read your comment, Ben. The thing about it would be better to have never been born has taken on a dangerous turn than the author probably could have ever fathomed. The anti-natalism philosophy that resulted in an act of terror at a Palm Springs fertility clinic. There's long been opposition to pro-natalism as it has opposed the right to abortion. As people made the connection between pro-natalism and militarism, fascist and militarist regimes always encourage reproduction by limiting women's rights, but this new phenomenon goes to an extreme. Wow. All right, this was a good, so remember, we talked at the beginning of this. Are we coming at it with a hermeneutic of suspicion or a hermeneutic of trust? And we said we're probably going to have a mix of the two. And what I'm hearing from everyone today, we are really suspicious of these first three verses because they seem to be saturated with the perspective of privilege. The fact that Kohelet is not doing anything about it or suggesting anything should be done. The fact that Kohelet can't see on the ground where people might be providing comfort or having any hope in what can be done, and seems to be using this as a tool to perpetuate his own power. All right, let's take up verses 4 through 8. Mainly, I just want to talk about this. Does anyone feel like they've experienced this, where the labor we do, whether that's in work, hobbies, family life, sometimes feels like it's caught up in envy of another? And if so, does that steal the joy that we find from labor? And I think another question would be, can we labor for our own enjoyment? Kohelet seems to think, well, if I don't have anyone to leave my riches to or even give them to in this life, then it's pointless. If I'm a single solitary individual, then what is the point of even working? Responses to that? Donna?
Evidently never worked in a garden. Yeah. Toiling. Sounds like you're only getting.
Never worked in a garden.
For someone else, you're not.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we remember from chapter 1, I believe, that it was common to steal the flora of enemies, to take them to build your own gardens, thinking of like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. But these people are not gardening and doing the labor themselves. They're taking it, they're transplanting it, they're trying to enjoy it without doing the labor. So Donna says this person's never gardened before. The solitary labor that you find pleasure in. Okay, yeah, James?
I think that this is really interesting in verse 7 and 8, because it has to do, I think, with something that I've thought a lot about in this time, which is we live under this society that values rugged individualism. There is this sense of solitary individuals. Social media, I think, is really amplifying this. What I see in this whole beginning of Ecclesiastes 4 is like this. It starts with this, oh, woe is everything, right? But then there's also this commitment to collectivism. There's this commitment to the idea that that as solitary individuals, there's no end to your toil. You're never satisfied with the fruits of your labor, because where are you seeing the fruit of that labor go to if you're not also with other people in community to help share that and help move the needle, so to speak. So I think it's really interesting to have this moment that I think is really relevant to us, like how do we build that kind of movement? How do we stop being the solitary individuals who are never satisfied with our riches and our toil, and how do we actually unite to help those oppressed, and stuff. I think verses 1 through 8 are really fascinating in that sense. Coming to this idea of collective.
Okay, all right. Thanks, James. So James connecting the first part to the second part of these first 8 verses, saying, oh, we live in a society that values rugged individualism. But what does it mean to escape from that cycle of never being satisfied with our riches or our quest for more, to bring it into a sense of collectivism where we're working together to stop the oppression, to move the needle, to help each other, to create something better? And how do we do that as a society, as a community? Other observations? Cynthia?
Actually, kind of a meta observation that I didn't know it's also in, but I read the whole Ecclesiastes and he seems to be saying everything is vanity. Like my feeling from reading the whole of it was, you know, we were alive for a short time, and we die, we're not really sure what happens. So on a certain level, all of it is vanity. So that doesn't mean he isn't impressive or and you know, this is obviously an educated person, so they have a lot of privilege, but I think when we start analyzing things independently, it's easy to lose track of maybe that there isn't a good role. And the impression I got from it was just it resonated really in my mind, that everything is temporary. The wind comes and goes, so maybe, I mean, to not attach in a way that you lose track. You know, if you attach to the suffering of Gaza, how can you not? But to attach so much that you go into despair and can't function is, you know, part of the problem. I mean, it's easy for me to talk about this person.
Yeah.
But like a study in the West where, you know, the children are not starving to death, and not starving to death. But I think that this focus is just kind of analyzing different things and then just saying, these are, they're always with us, but they're always temporary. You're not personally going to live long enough to suffer 3,000 years of suffering. So the time period between here and here.
Yeah. Cynthia reminding us of this thread, this theme of how temporary everything is, and you know, the ironic part of remembering that temporariness and that detachment as it might be the very thing that saves us from complete despair.
Right, not to not act, but to remember, to have a sense of proportion about
Yeah.
what you can do and how things function over time, but to not give up.
Yeah, it's not permission for complacency, but it provides perspective. Let's try to get to this last chunk of chapter 4. And this might tie into your comment, James. This is actually a common wedding text, a scripture read at weddings. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up the other. But woe to one who is alone and falls and does not have another to help. Again, if 2 lie together, they keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? And though one might prevail against another, 2 will withstand 1. A 3-fold cord is not quickly broken. Better is a poor but wise youth than an old but foolish king who will no longer take advice. One can indeed come out of prison to reign, even though born poor in the kingdom. I saw all the living who, moving about under the sun, followed that youth who replaced the king. There was no end to all those people whom he led. Yet those who come later will not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity, a chasing after wind. All right, I see a lot of emotions on faces, so comments are coming. Yeah, Shirley?
One thing I was thinking, just kind of before we started reading this, was one perspective that we have, that probably people at that time did not, was the idea of how we will be seen by people in the future, historically. I mean, they would just write out old people, and then they didn't keep track of ancient history, and that's why we're constantly digging it up and finding new things. They weren't keeping it. Now it's like everybody has a history, but we also just still go back and honor Abraham Lincoln, someone who was quite a long time ago. And so I think here, it's the same idea, at least he is, you know, a youth will replace the king. It's like, there is no one that you can look back and appreciate. And I think we at least have that point of view that maybe holds us accountable.
Hmm. Today, more so than in the past, there's a record of one's actions, comments, thoughts. So there's a little bit more accountability than in the past, where someone might have faded more easily into obscurity.
Yeah, we're notorious for our total lack of a historical perspective.
And yet we seem to be notorious right now for a complete lack of historical
Well,
perspective.
this seems to me is just repetition, endless repetition. That youth will become the king, who will be, you know.
Part of the cycle of endless repetition. The youth replaces the king, someone follows the youth, he gets older, she gets older, and then back to the beginning. Yeah, Chris?
So presumably, Kohelet is just talking in the abstract, but do scholars surmise who he might be talking about specifically?
Regarding the foolish king?
The foolish king,
Yeah.
or youth who replaced the king?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I'm trying to think, you know, we estimate late 400s for this text. So I don't know. That's a really good question if there's some sort of historical reference here. Now, maybe not when it's written, but if we were to take it as Solomon, Solomon is the last king of a united Israel. And so after Solomon, Solomon's son comes on the scene and is so brash about his own power and tries to lord it over the Israelites in a way that is oppressive and abusive, that a rival comes forward and says, we're not going to put up with this anymore, follow me instead, and the kingdom split. So it could very much be a reference to that.
Going back to the 9 and 12, given that so far this book is so like fatalistic, weak, and a lot of stuff, there's a little bit of hopefulness here where he talks about, I think of it as community, like two better than one, because you were talking about James, because they had a good reward for their toil. It's like not just doing it for yourself or your own. It's like there's this hopefulness about if you're with another person, and I'll look at, or even threefold cord is not quickly broken, as being like, if there's, I don't know, like a reward for that, versus the other part where he was talking about, I was thinking about going back to the other verses, I thought, comparison is the thief of joy, that's where the last passage was kind of alluding to, if you're like just in comparing what I have and you have, versus this is like, we're going to work together to help each other. There's a little bit more hopefulness in that passage.
Yeah. Lisa, finding a little bit more hope in this section where we're getting towards, okay, what does it look like when we can work together? Echoing your comments, James. Shirley?
And if you read 9 through 12, I mean, it sounds nice, but how do you achieve that? And it has to be through humility and cooperation and compromise. You don't develop a threesome that's tight if you can't give up.
All right. Shirley's saying, how do you accomplish verses 9 through 12? You need humility, you need compromise. You can't achieve this without being willing to work with someone. Yeah, Diane?
It just made me think of the snake. Wasn't always for good, trying to make alliances.
Yeah.
To have more control or to feel comfort in, say, 2 or 3 people who agree to behave in a certain way. And, actually,
Yeah.
interesting current day.
Yeah.
Reality show that
Yeah.
actually plays that out.
Yeah. So Diane just saying, thinking of the show The Snake, that alliances, these reality shows where people are playing this social game of building pacts and bonds and agreeing to behave in a certain way to work together, such that we see, I think we see the power of this, particularly at the local level, when there is incredible grassroots organization to where this can be both for good or for evil. When people at a grassroots level say, we're going to take over the school board and we're going to pass anti-LGBTQ laws, rules, stipulations within the school district. And it's really hard to fight against that when you don't have the power of the school board. And so we're seeing that down in Chino Hills. All right. Yeah, last comment.
People who are LGBTQ anti or pro, but did you notice that revolving is happening in Temecula and Marietta, the opposite way though, because people got so tired of everything at the board meeting being about that and not about anything to do with general student education. So it's taking a turn away from that. And pro LGBTQ rights, because they're realizing they took away everything. So I think if you get crazy enough, it comes back around.
Okay. Donna saying people in Marietta, Temecula seeing the same thing as in Chino, but they get so fed up and angry that it starts coming around. So is there a cycle to this?
And it is a grassroots movement as well.
It's a grassroots movement. So, all right, what are we leaving with today? I think we're leaving with an adequate suspicion of power and privilege. What I hear from this room is, even in the face of so many of our own personal emotions that feel hopeless or exasperated, we're still putting our trust in the ability of the cycle to keep moving and the pendulum to swing through people in community working together in small ways to accumulate greater change, that we haven't lost all hope in our ability to affect change in that way. That's a good thing. All right, I think this is going to dovetail into Jen's sermon perfectly today, so let us close in prayer. God, thank you for giving us this space today to speak out loud and to name the ways in which our emotions can feel overwhelming, that we can see evil at work and we can feel exasperated. But we come here because we have hope that you have called us to comfort the afflicted, to work against oppression. And so we pray that whatever small action we might be inspired to take through your teachings, that it can accumulate, that it can build up, that we can see the ways in which your calling is at work in this world. We pray this in Christ's name. Amen.